Man, I really need a haircut. Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here with episode 8 of the video log. This week I'll be doing some drills in the OC1 as well as a workout again, and at the end I'll try paddling the boat without the AMA on. I will have a Yaku on, that way I can have the camera on the front to get some footage, and I can assure you that the Yaku by itself does not help with the balance in any way. I could put the camera on my forehead, but it's a much better view seeing it from the front or the back Yaku for a third person view. So this next talking point will likely be a full paddle tip video either this Friday or next Friday. I don't have a catchy name for it yet. Understanding the kinetic chain is already a video that we've done. The spiral of bad technique and some of the pitfalls that come from that, I'm still working on a catchy title. But overall, the idea is how bad technique can hold you back from learning new technique. When we look at paddling, there's a lot of components to technique, right? We have how our body is moving and how we are using it throughout the stroke. An easy way to think about it is breaking the body down into multiple parts, as well as different phases of the stroke. So you have top arm, bottom arm, head position, how you're using your torso, how you're using your hips, your leg drive, how you're pushing with your heels. Then you have the setup, the catch, power, exit, and the recovery. So that's a lot of individual points, right? And the idea with the video is how one bad section of any of that can then mess up the other sections that touch it. And what I mean by that is like the setup touches the catch, and the catch touches the power, and the power touches the exit. They are all linked to each other. My top arm touches my bottom arm, right? And how I'm using this can affect my bottom arm here. When we're learning technique, the human brain can only focus on so many things at once, right? And it's usually only one or two things in a very distinct way. If you feel like you can think about 3 or 4 or 5 things at once, it means that you are not. You've lost track of them, and you think that you're monitoring this idea, but you've actually just foregone it, no brain power is going to it, and you might be focused on something else. So when we have new technique integration, we can only focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, right? But bad technique from the other sections that touch these ideas, we don't have the brain power to think about them because we're thinking about these 1 or 2 ideas here, but these messed up ideas and movement now hinder or make these integration of new movement obsolete. Stroke can only be as strong as the weakest link of these components. And one of the most common end results with poor movement and poor leverages is that you have to train yourself to take a very weak stroke. If you took a truly powerful stroke, the system is not in a position to be successful. Injury goes up, that connection goes up, sustainability drops. There are so many factors that go into that. So you see paddlers get very out of position with their movement, and when they truly learn to load that stroke, disaster strikes, right? The system cannot take that much load in that positioning. So when we talk about better movement, we are trying to make a better connection with the water because there's a higher load capacity, and you have to morph your body to take and sustain this higher load capacity. A great example is paddlers that don't realize that they're arm paddlers. Christina, my wife, and I were watching a TV show, and it's a father teaching his son how to throw a punch, right? The kid's flailing his arms around, and his dad's dodging these punches, and he's like, yeah, you can throw them with just your arms, and that works. But if you use your shoulders and your hips and your legs, you would have a much stronger punch. And it takes a while to get the hang of it. I looked at my wife and I said, look, I'm not crazy. It's a very normal idea that's referenced in pop culture, right? Try to use your whole body when you're going through these motions. It allows you to create more force, but it also gives you the opportunity to deal with more force. A stroke comprised of very weak components means that it will break under pressure. And that's the whole name of the game. We're putting the blade in the water to find the most amount of pressure. If we're out of position even a little bit, these joints are going to fail you. The most common ones being your shoulder and your lower back. Less commonly would be your wrist and your forearm. And then the final ones that usually never get hurt would be your hips and your legs. So when we integrate a new motion or a new idea, you are going going to have a higher amount of load or force on the stroke, right? Positive blade angle is a great example. If you can set up your body to find positive blade angle, you are going to lengthen the stroke, which is going to increase the duration you find pressure for and allow you to find more pressure there. So that's twofold. So now you're loading your system with much more force. These are the ideas that you're working on, finding more positive blade angle, but you're a habitual arm paddler. When you find more load and only use your arms, something in the system is going to break. And this is where paddling and using your whole body becomes mandatory at a certain point. The only way you can deal with this additional load in a meaningful way is you have to turn your hips into the stroke. You have to use every single muscle at your disposal and tuck these shoulders in to keep them protected. If they flail away from the body and move independently of the body, whether you're aware of that or not, puts you in danger. And so it becomes a common pitfall. Because I'm an arm paddler, I can't introduce these new ideas because I'll hurt myself. So now I'm relegated to a much lower output with my stroke simply because I can't move my whole body. When we're looking at performance on a whole, the only route to getting better is to getting more performance out of your stroke. And that comes with learning to use your whole body to deal with these forces. And that's one of the things with injury is we like to think that the sky opens up and light shines on our heads and we just magically befall the idea of being able to use your whole body. When I find more pressure, my body will magically know how to deal with this pressure. But the reality is, if you don't move correctly, you will beat your body to death. For many people, the only enlightenment they have is that I have to take this stroke very easily to protect this system. Paddlers that are truly good set themselves up into position to deal with as much pressure as they can for as long as they can. If the system was weak, they would also run into injuries as well. They're finding more pressure than most people are. But the success of using the whole body and positioning the joints in the most advantageous way is the key to getting faster. Learning to use your whole body, understanding the big picture with the stroke, and understanding that the small components are necessary to link together to make one meaningful motion. Don't let these poor motions hold back these good motions, and so on. Once you get the hang of the front of the stroke, then you can identify how you're using the rest of your body and how you're exiting the stroke and how you're setting up the next stroke and starting to link all of these together. You can still move your body around and move your arms independent of your body's motion. And I think this is one of the most common pitfalls that people fall into is my body is moving, I must be using it, right? But your arms moving independent of which way your body is going is the most common end result. All of these joints can choose to connect to each other or they can work independently of each other. And there's a whole lot of them connected. Ankle, knee, hip, thoracic spine, shoulder, elbow, wrist, fingers, right? All of these things can move together or independently of each other. Second after second, are they together? Are they apart? Are they together? Are they apart? It's overwhelmingly complex. It is a lifetime pursuit to getting the hang of the overwhelming complexity of the stroke. In your mind, if it's simple, it means that you're not grasping truly what you're capable of. So I hope you guys enjoyed the training footage and hopefully all this was insightful. And this will be a little bit more concise on the paddle tip video. I'm still trying to structure how I want to say all of it. If you have anything you'd like to add, please send a comment or shoot me an email. Thank you guys so much for checking out the series and we'll see you all next week. All right, everybody, welcome back to Lake Hernando. Dropping the Draco into the water here. Giving a little wave to the camera. I always feel like when I do these vlogs, the workouts aren't super serious and the lake is perfectly flat out. And anytime I need to do a time trial, it's always super windy. So as usual, just like I mentioned in the last vlog with the OC1, I always fly the AMA, paddle on the left side with the AMA up, switching back and forth, just getting a feel for the boat, kind of turning on the nervous system, getting ready for the workout. So the first phase here is some pause strokes, setting up positive blade angle with the top hand, torso, and hip position, and then making sure that that positive blade angle goes into the water. People very commonly whiff the positive blade angle that they create in the air by moving their top elbow too soon. right? So I demonstrate this here where the top elbow extends, then the blade goes in the water. And you can see this happens very quickly, but you lose where the blade tip touches the water and the positive blade angle actually interacts with the water at, right? So it's a very subtle thing, but if you shoot your elbow too soon before the stroke starts, you miss the first 12 inches of your stroke and it hinders that length in the water. So you can see here when I'm setting up these strokes, I'm trying to hold on to that positive blade angle and put the positive blade angle into the water. The primary workout today is a slow stroke, fast boat, and so you need to utilize as much length in the water as physically possible. So this is a great drill to pause, set up, and feel the positive blade angle go into the water. I'm not an extraordinarily tall person or have any gifted leverages with my arms, but using my hips, torso, and positive blade angle, I can actually get my blade beyond my yaku in the front, right? So it's something to think about. You want your blade tip to touch very close to that in front of you as a visual guide, right? Turning the hips, turning the shoulders, and setting up your top hand with a bend to get this leverage allows you to reach that far. Many paddlers are barely touching the water where their feet start, and you can see that I'm getting 18 inches additional length in the water just by setting up these leverages in the front. So the next idea that we're looking at is sending the hips. So at the very end of the stroke here, I'm going through and pushing my hips and sitting up. You can see the boat kind of jar and jerk at the very end of the stroke near the exit. So the front half is very weak, and then boom, pushing and sending the hips. This incentivizes having the blade behind you a little bit to allow you to express and move your hips into the stroke both by rotating and by sitting up with hip extension. So pushing this leverage into the stroke at the very end propels the boat and allows it to carry its glide between strokes. Paddlers that are scared to let the blade go behind their body can't use their hips in this way, right? So you're unable to really send those hips into the stroke. The next one here is just doing a back half of the stroke. So you can see I put the blade in around where my knee is at, and I'm only pushing the blade negatively behind me. You can see that the boat, it's moving pretty well, 6 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour, then connecting that back half with a front half. So now I'm gonna start reaching to a positive blade angle and then push it all the way to the back of the stroke there. You can see the speed start to rise, connecting the dots with the back half and the front half connecting. This is a great drill to do if you doubt that the back half of the stroke can move your boat and is a bad thing, right? I can paddle like this and defeat many paddlers that are adept with their stroke just because there's so many leverages available behind us if you utilize them correctly. The paddle is designed to allow you to have a leverage advantage at the back of the stroke, so try to use it. So the first 2 minutes here, I'm trying to shoot for 20 feet per stroke. That's about 6.1 meters per stroke. Ideally, I would need to keep the stroke rate at 25, and I messed that up, and I have it at 30 strokes per minute here, right? What I'm looking for is a tremendous amount of load, right? The first introduction to the video here, I talk about loading the body and making sure that the kinetic chain and your system can deal with this force. The idea of pressure is not a figurative idea. It is a literal thing. Having GPS data that tells you distance per stroke tells you how much force you're finding and dealing with. So it's a great way to make sure that you are finding this additional pressure over time, getting stronger, and utilizing your leverages, right? We're looking for these leverage advantages as we're going through the stroke. So I end up with 6.3 miles per hour, 6.4 with the average speed, 30 strokes in 2 minutes here. It's just a 2-minute burst. It's almost like lifting super heavy weights each time I'm taking the stroke. I'm trying to load the system with the most amount of force that I can, right? If my structural integrity and my movement was poor or my setup was poor, my shoulders would fall out of my body. I would blow out my, a lumbar spinal disc, right? But instead, everything is very compact. Everything is very strong. So I'm able to load it with this tremendous amount of force. I only end up with, I think, like 19.3 feet per stroke, which is still a whole lot, but it's not 20, which I was aiming for. So I knew I had YouTube watching me on this workout. So normally I don't go so crazy on the sets, but I go a little too hard on my first set and it kind of messes up the rest of my set. So what I'm looking for here, this is just a 2-minute drill. The next sections are 10 minutes, right? I'm just gonna show the first 2 minutes of them. So the goal pace here is under 40 strokes per minute, right? So I end up with about 37 strokes per minute on this set, holding that pace for 10 minutes. Normally this would net me around 6.5 miles per hour, but again, I got YouTube watching me, so I'm pushing as hard as I physically can, and I end up with an average speed of 6.7 miles per hour. So I was going 1 mile in under 9 minutes at a stroke rate of 37, right? So when we're looking at race efficiency, that is not efficient at all because you have to be so muscular with the stroke. But in a training dynamic, loading your system with a tremendous amount of force and teaching these muscles to be stronger and making sure that you have a postural leverage advantage throughout the movement, this is an excellent drill to do to make sure that your system is firing properly. If you attempt to paddle like this and you immediately hurt yourself, it means that you are not giving yourself a good leverage advantage and your joints are out of postural advantage points. So going through all this, right, we just want to make sure using the hips, setting up the top hands properly, finding that length in the water and staying consistent, right? We're looking for a tremendous amount of load on the stroke, right? It's not easy strokes. You don't get stronger by taking a lot of easy strokes. You get stronger by taking strokes that challenge your muscular system and the leverages that you're trying to create. This is the idea again with bad technique. When you have bad movement, when you have bad leverages, you can't load that system, so you're unable to understand or find the pathway into moving your vessel faster. If you can't paddle with more pressure, the boat doesn't go faster, and now you're stuck in a limbo where your only option is to start paddling faster, but that gives you diminishing rewards as time goes on, right? So finding pressure is the basis to building on for more speed. So the next set here is it's under 45 strokes per minute. So we're adding about 8 strokes per minute here. So again, the first set I go super hard and I'm doing the set and I'm like, holy crap, I'm whipped. My muscles are already tired. I got a 10-minute piece here. So the first 2 minutes it feels good, but the second set of the 5 minutes at the end, it starts to diminish a little bit. So the average speed and the distance per stroke struggles here comparatively to the first set. And so all that means is that, again, when the muscular system gets zapped and you try to paddle in a muscular way, you're gonna get diminishing rewards from that. And so from a racing dynamic, staying more cardiovascularly abled on the stroke means turning over a little quicker, usually will yield longer term results on a race course. So again here, only 6.9 miles per hour, but I'm taking, 9 additional strokes per minute. The distance per stroke drops off tremendously from that, right? So I'm not able to stay quite as muscular on each stroke. So I'm taking more strokes, but each of them are weaker. The end result is still a higher speed output, but proportionally to the first set, it's lacking, right? Like this should have been a little bit over 7 miles an hour on, a more fresh run. But overall, still not bad, right? Paddling at the higher rate means that you're starting to move faster, especially in the recovery. How you set up starts to become quicker and quicker. And so just making sure that the reach is still there, the hips are still moving, positive blade angle is still intact, still driving the hips at the end of the stroke, not rushing the components of the stroke that truly move the boat and make you go faster, but trying to speed up the things that slow down your boat, like the recovery, like setting up. These are things that are airtime that don't move the boat quite as fast. So normally I would do this last piece at 55 strokes per minute for a full 10 minutes, and I was absolutely zapped. It's super hot out. I worked too hard on the first set, killing myself on the second set. So I just do this last set for 2 minutes just to get some footage. So this is 55 strokes per minute. This is usually my 1 to 2 hour race pace in outrigger canoe strokes per minute wise. This effort value is higher though. So I'm trying to find a lot of pressure per stroke because I'm only paddling for 2 minutes, not for 120 minutes. But this setup, turning over, moving the legs, the blade speed through the water, all of this is pretty on par. If you see me on a race course, this is usually what you end up, or what I end up looking like. I like to sit between 50 and 60 strokes per minute on race pace efficiency, right? It allows the boat to keep its glide, and it gives you just enough time to set up your stroke in an advantageous way. Under 50 strokes per minute in a training sense, wonderful to work your muscular system, wonderful to give you extra time to set up the stroke and work on your technique. But in a race context, under 50 strokes per minute allows the hull to slow down stroke to stroke. So I ended up 8 miles an hour average. This isn't a sprint either. A sprint would be much higher strokes per minute. Still able to hold on to almost 12 feet per stroke. And that's the real emphasis here, is finding the length in the water, then turning over. This is still structured in keeping the stroke rate monitored at around 55 strokes per minute. I ended up at about 57. Normally I can hold this for the full 10 minutes, probably not at 8 miles an hour, probably be closer to like 7.7. Most metrics similar, again, just, incorporating fatigue definitely kicked my butt. So this is the last part of the structured parts of the workout. Now to the fun part, watching me struggle with no AMA. Look at that, there's no AMA on either side. I have the Yaku on the right side here on the Draco, and I have the camera mounted on that. So I do have a Yaku behind me. It touches the water here and there, but it doesn't help with the balance. If you think it does, take your boat, put one Yaku in, jump in it, and let me know if it's a lot easier than having no Yaku. I find having no Yaku is a lot easier personally, because when that thing hits the water, it's not a balance point, it's just like, it's a little jarring, so you just have to account for it skimming on the water every now and then. What makes this work is the bracing. You can see me slapping the top of the water kind of frantically here. If I was not doing that, I would just fall right in the water. So there's no AMA on the left side, so my blade is acting as a mobile AMA. And you may not know this, but my left side bracing and strokes are terrible, because the AMA being on the left side means you don't have to do that. So I try to switch here on the left, and boom, I immediately fall in. Check that out. I did that on purpose, knowing that area there is pretty shallow, so it was I could just walk back to land and reset. I moved the Yaku to the front, and gives you a different little view here. Same idea of bracing here on the right side. Some people are ambidextrous and more talented than me. They can paddle on the left side as well. There's no reason to do bracing or anything in an outrigger canoe on the left side, because that's where the AMA's at. So I don't have much practice with left side bracing in most contexts. Using a wing blade paddle in a surf ski is totally different than using the blade here. So coming back to shore, I tried to push it a little bit, and I was able to get 6 miles an hour for like 2 strokes. It just means you can't brace quite as much. And I'm thinking about it, shallow up here, and it's like, man, if I just switch to the left side, I can get some strokes in, look super cool. And the moment I do it, fall right in the water. It's super shallow there. So working on balance, if you watched the first Sprint Canoe episode, look at that. I've come a long way in my balance. I saw some kids do this on YouTube, and I was like, you know what, I can do it. So standing in the front, jumping around, Sprint Canoe balance has come a long way. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out the vlog. Hopefully this has been insightful. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out. If you go to the K2N onlinepaddleschool.com, we have all of these drills plus 40 more of them for surf ski, stand-up paddleboard, as well as outrigger canoe. If you need structured training plans on the water to help you reach your goals, check out the website. It's super affordable, real easy to do. Send you 2 weeks of workouts at a time, and we work together on the next microcycle block and string them together until you hit your goals. Thank you guys so much again for checking out the YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't.